So first, we had Trisha Paytas faking DID and then Ollie Linden transitioning to be Korean. And yes, we could just be like, yeah. Well, if you've got such a big issue with that, just ignore it. But here's the thing, if people, especially young people, see others doing this kind of behavior and more, it becomes an issue as they will want to mimic that behavior. There is nothing wrong with being who you are, but some of it is getting out of hand, and the meaning of expression and identity is becoming warped. So the main thing I would like to bring up as an example here is Ollie, or Rotten Bugs 1 on TikTok. So here's what its TikTok page looks like right at the start. Yeah. So, right off the bat, looks like this person is a neopronoun user. By the way, there is nothing wrong with using neopronouns. That is totally okay. Although, these pronouns it appears to be using, I feel like are disrespectful to those who use neopronouns. I can't tell if it's being serious or if it's trying to make fun of people who use them. People who use neopronouns or noun self-pronouns, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like maybe these pronouns will harm the neopronoun community, if that's actually a community. I am not sure. It feels like an insult, but then again, I don't use neopronouns, so it isn't my place to really speak on this. So anyway, vagina vag self-pronouns. Now in another TikTok, Ollie said it is upset people don't respect its vagina vag self-neopronouns. Although, I feel like, it's not socially acceptable to call someone that if you hardly know them, or if you're in public. I also feel like it's fair if people don't want to say that. I mean, it could be uncomfortable for them for some reason. Every single person I actually know that uses neopronouns is actually very kind and patient about it, and also I've yet to find any socially unacceptable ones. Even those like kitty kitties, elf, bun buns, I really see no problem with. And for most neopronoun users, if you don't feel comfortable calling them that, they often will provide an alternative set of pronouns, or you can just call them by name. However, Ollie is very mad that people will not call it vagina vag self. Anyway, Ollie also identifies as transracial, and I'm sorry to anyone I offend, but that's not how it works, and no. Just because you identify as African American does not mean you get to say the N-word all of a sudden. Transracial is pretty much a mockery of transgender people in my opinion. Not to mention, the literal trigger warning for person of color. The trigger warning for being a person of color, when number 1, you're not a person of color, you're literally so white you're rosy, and I'm sorry to say that, and number 2, why on earth is there a need for a trigger warning if you're a person of color? I don't know if maybe this comes from old stereotypes about African American people. I'm not going to get into all the old stereotypes, because I am sure by now we all know the ones I am referring to. And if that's the case, that is an entire new level of racist. Oh my god. So on top of all of that, Ollie is also a MAP supporter. No, Ollie is a pedophile supporter. I literally cannot explain the amount of disgust I have for this. So let's watch one of Ollie's TikToks that is supposed to tell us some more about it.
I'm not gonna kill your car or call your fucking mom. You should have paid my rent. Go get that fucking job.
So Ollie is bug gender, and also supports self-diagnosing. So I personally don't have an issue with being like, hey, I've researched this disorder or condition, and I think it would really explain a lot if I maybe had this. But I don't support people, for example, thinking they have dyslexia because they can't spell a word, or think they have ADHD because they're hyper, which, I am diagnosed with ADHD and that's not even how it really is. Especially for me. Everyone is different though. BPD or borderline personality disorder is a condition characterized by difficulties regulating emotions. ADHD is a neurological disorder, is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which is mostly self-explanatory. Both of which require a medical diagnosis for it to be considered classified. Now, there really is no telling about if Ollie really has these or not. I don't have enough evidence to call it on its bullshit just yet. So I won't. Now, Ollie also claims to have depression, which here's the thing, everyone has been or gets depressed. That however does not mean you have depression. There are also different types of depression, which by the way, also all need a medical diagnosis. Oh, on top of that, Ollie also claims to have DID. Sound familiar? Now, Ollie has yet to talk about it being a system yet, so not entirely sure, but I will say I'm a little more on the fence about believing this. The idea is much more rare than ADHD, BPD, etc. though, the probability of you seeing someone with red hair is the same probability as you seeing someone with DID. So it's very possible it's true. Though I have a hard time believing it since faking DID and Tourette's seem to be the hottest thing for some reason. So, in the next TikTok, Ollie says some upsetting things here. Also, if you have struggled with an eating disorder, this might be upsetting.
皆さんどうもおはにーとぽいぽいぽいぽぽいぽいぽぴーぽいぽいぽいぽぽいぽいぽぴー KYN KYN 大きな声でキュー
So, joke or not, this is really messed up. Calling someone who has struggled with an eating disorder out about being fatphobic can cause relapse or trigger them, since eating disorders can worsen mental health in many different ways. Especially since those coming out of an eating disorder are trying to be very strong and work hard to get better. Not to mention, there's more than just anorexia as an eating disorder. There's binge eating disorder, bulimia, etc. Also, just because you may not want to look plus-sized does not mean you're fatphobic. Honestly, I'll take myself here as an example. I personally like to be pretty skinny and lanky. However, I find plus-sized or thicker individuals beautiful. Also, this TikTok on its page. Yes, trigger warning eyeshadow. Was that supposed to be genuine or funny? See, this is the first post I saw on this person, which is why I thought it was satire or just rude humor, but seeing the rest of this I just can't tell anymore. Anyway, that's pretty much what I had to say on that. Apparently its other account got banned as well, and now it has this account in a backup. Although I still feel like it shouldn't be on the app at all. I honestly just felt like it needed to be talked about. Also, there was a claim that in each TikTok, the person in them isn't even Ollie, and rather Ollie is taking random alternative people and using them in this way. Which is another issue in itself. Although, it would make sense watching the videos, as sometimes the audio isn't matched up perfectly, or the lip sync isn't even to the audio being played. Which is like, great, it isn't real, although in my opinion, it makes it even more likely that this person really is the way that it is. If you believed things that were viewed as, and are, problematic or wrong, you wouldn't want to show your real face, since you would surely be attacked, and that is what sadly might be the case. Anyway, that's really all I have to say about this entire topic. I felt like someone had to talk about, so I decided I would, even though my channel hasn't gotten much exposure. Thanks for listening to the rant.